Welcome back to the McCoy Leadership Podcast, elevating your impact through valuable insights and conversations about leadership. Welcome back to the McCoy Leadership Podcast. Today, we have Michael Klassen with us. He is a veteran broadcast producer with extensive experience in news, sports, film, and podcast projects, and now he has the highly successful 5 a.m. podcast. Michael, welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with our listeners. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you've ended up with the 5 a.m. podcast.
Well, thank you, Amos. It's great to be here. And, you know, it's always interesting to look back and count the ways. My mom used to make us sing this song, Count Your Many Blessings. And sometimes it seemed like you really had to go back through the notebook to know what you're going to add in for that list. But, you know, thinking back, when I started in broadcasting, boy, that was a while ago. And it was one of those industries where you didn't really have to go to college because even though I did go to college and get a degree, it was somewhat unrelated, more in communications. But the TV side of it was more about the quality of product. And I had a couple of mentors, but I knew that I really needed to, I guess finding my voice came later, but I really needed to hone my craft and find out who I was. And I found out that I was actually really good at organizing and producing the technical scripts and the shooting scripts. And that just seemed to be where my talents lay. Although I did love being in front of the camera and I enjoyed that part. One of the pieces of advice I got from a fellow by the name of Steve Foley, naturally we called him Axel. But he said, Michael, you can work in front of the camera or behind the camera, but there's a lot more jobs behind the camera than in front. So he said, take your pick, but you'll never be really out of work if you're behind the camera. And so that's kind of, you know, thank the Lord, I was able to develop those shooting skills, editing skills, but the organizational side is really what I needed to learn personally and what had really helped in building teams later in my career. And so much so that I had a comment from someone outside the industry, but very much involved with building teams. And he made a comment to a family member once that, boy, Michael has really developed that skill of being able to put the right people together. And so that's been good. And especially working on sports and getting to know coaches, whether it's different levels of hockey or university football or the pros, just being able to be around that ethos of sports. And then me taking that into broadcasting and knowing that I'm not just building shows, but I was really helping to build lives and careers with the people that came and worked either below me or alongside or above me.
Now, I'm curious, digging into your ability to be organized and your talent for organization. I used to have a mentor that often would tell me that success comes when preparation and opportunity meet. And I'm curious, you know, with the successes that you've had, you know, how much of that was just luck, or how much of that was you were preparing and organizing, and when the time came and the opportunity came, you were ready to go? I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure, like a lot of people, if we don't plan, we fail to plan, we plan to fail. I think that's how it goes. And so sometimes you feel like you're stumbling around in the dark, but you learn. And especially the way my brain operates with a whole bunch of things going on, kind of like the squirrel, I think, in Over the Hedge when he drinks the caffeinated pop. I mean, sometimes that's how my brain has felt. And so it was out of sheer necessity that I had to learn to be organized and to be disciplined. And I guess I could go back and thank my parents for putting me in this school that I did not like. It was a Christian school, and we had to set goals every day for everything we did. And I hated it, but I soon learned the value of it because I started doing like the minimal amount of scheduling for myself, as you do when you're 10 years old and you dislike school with a passion. So it was even those things, looking back, that I can say now that really helped me to harness my mind and harness my abilities. But as far as the luck and versus the preparation, we can never discount the providence of God and how our steps are directed. But of course, we have to put, let's say, meat on those bones, and we might get the skeleton and we might get the kind of the vision, but we still have to write the vision and make it plain so that we can run with it. And so it's a mix of both for sure, but definitely would have nothing and be nothing without that divine providence. That's for sure.
Now, a conversation that I have had many times talking about that divine providence is what, in your experience through your career, how do you draw the line or delineate between waiting for God's time or taking it on your own or being lazy? And this is a common, theme with Christian leaders and Christian business leaders that we talk about is,
yes,
how do you know when it's time to act and it's time to wait? And there's a fine, and maybe it's not so fine, but there's a fine line there where all of a sudden high performing individuals think, well, I'm being lazy. So what's been your experience?
That's good, because I've struggled with that too. I have to be a human doing, not a human being. And so it's remembering that we're human beings, not human doings. And another phrase that I picked up recently is my plan, my time, God's plan, God's time. And so if I'm co-laboring and co-creating, that means that I know I have responsibilities, and there's times where I'm supposed to rest, and there's times where I'm supposed to work. And if we think of the work of the Holy Spirit coming alongside us, being that paraclete, which is a lovely $35 word for someone who comes alongside and advocates and trains us and teaches us the way to go. If you have that compulsion that I need to stop and take a break and I need to reassess the situation, there's so much value in that stopping to take a break. I was reading something this morning about naps, which are kind of a bygone era. We don't really think of naps, but I think it's appropriate to this conversation that it adds so much to your brain function and your physiology, just like physically putting strain and stress on our bodies if we're weight training or cycling or standing on a vibration plate or something like that. And there's a time for everything. I certainly know for myself and all the work that I've done in the gym or my cycling, which I usually like to go for about an hour or so. I know that I can't do it every single day. And somewhere where I learned this is I was cycling to the TV studio that I was working at, and it took me about 45 minutes to go there and 45 minutes home. And I had lots of energy, and I had this great recovery drink that is actually banned in some places, but it's a great drink, and it actually gave me a lot of pep in my step. The reason I bring that up is because if I biked for 4 days in a row, man, those legs did not want to work whatsoever for the next 4 days.
Yep.
So then I realized, boy, that recovery time really eats into a whole lot of things I wanted to do. So that was it's a very practical image. I'm sure that most people can realize that. I realized, okay, I have to pace myself. And my older brother and I did run track and field in our younger years. And this is a real trip down memory lane. But that was one of the things I had to learn. And it comes back to the planning and setting goals, is I learned I had to pace myself. And I had to run different on those sprints than I did on the 400 meter. And so in answer to your question, boy, this is like a long rabbit trail, but that's okay. I usually throw my fish hooks into the weeds, but just being able to stop and take that time and say, you know what, I'm a human being and I'm co-laboring in what I'm doing, not just with the Lord himself, but with my team. And my wife would tell me, slow down, you can't go at Michael speed. You have other people that you're responsible for and that you're working with. And so it's finding that balance of who I'm with and what my capacities are. And I can't burn out. I don't want to be a flash in the pan, so to speak.
Understood. And I think the key thing to draw out of that for the listeners is, it's okay to stop and rest. Nowhere, I don't believe anywhere in the Bible does it say you need to work 20 plus hours a day. You need that time for rest. And we could probably talk for another hour just on that subject, but I do want to get to your 5 a.m. podcast. So what is this 5 a.m. podcast? That sounds like an awfully early time in the morning. So what's the mission behind it and what is it?
Well, first off, I thought it was a great name. And I love getting up early in the morning. And, we don't always meet our own objectives and goals, but we're always working and aspiring towards the best. And I love being up early in the morning. And I know that was something that was ingrained into me through my entire life growing up. And I didn't like staying up late to begin with, but I liked getting up early. And there's something to be said for building that foundation of the day. And if we get up before other things are going on, it gives us an opportunity to be intentional about our day. It gives us an opportunity, for me personally, I can connect with myself and my spiritual self and my Creator and Lord. Plus, that gives me an opportunity to exercise my body and my mind and get those endorphins going for the day. And there's definitely a marked difference if I'm sleeping in a little bit later, let's say, and you're going straight into your tasks for the day. There's far less productivity. There's probably more disorganization. And it all stems even from not planning my previous day because I didn't go to bed at my objective time. And naturally, it throws everything off. So the point of the early mornings is that your day is ordered. And your day is specific with intentions to accomplish a purpose. And if we keep doing things the same every day and we dislike the outcome and we want to change the outcome, that means we have to change the hours leading up to that outcome.
Makes sense. Yeah. I'm curious from a planning standpoint. Do you spend any time in the prior day planning for the next day, or do you do all your planning for the next day? And I understand there are appointments and things that are in your calendar. Yes. I get that. Yeah. But do you spend time at the end of your day planning for the next day, or is most of your planning and preparation in those early morning hours?
Well, definitely throughout the day. And my wife can definitely attest to this. I have a certain time where it's like work can no longer be discussed. And if I didn't do something, too bad, so sad. It's got to be done tomorrow. And so that can irk some people. I get it. And I don't like to, after a certain point, I have an expectation that my work and planning has already been done. And then when I wake up in the morning and I'm going through my routine or ritual, whatever it might be, I've already told myself beforehand that I need to make sure that my schedule is good for the morning. And so then I get up and I can do my things. I can check my schedule and know what I have. One caveat to that perhaps is there's only certain times in the day that I like to schedule certain things. And I learned this from a employer that I had and from college of blocking certain parts of the day. It's kind of like J.D. Rockefeller. He had a plan for every dollar that his company made, and it couldn't be used for over here because here's the 100-year plan for this dollar. So if we look at our time and our schedule like that I have this time for this, and I'm not doing anything else right now. This time is devoted to this particular task. It helps with the organization through the week of knowing that if there's some audibles that are called, I have to look of where I'm kind of allowing myself to put those in so that I can keep the main thing and not be distracted by the shiny objects and that squirrel drinking that can of soda.
Yes. Well, me personally, just I say recently, in the past couple of months, it hit me that I love to plan. I have lists for my list. I organize everything, and I would meticulously. Now, for me, I normally on Friday afternoons I plan the entire next week, and then I know that each evening I sit down and look at that and adjust and anything that needs to be adjusted. But throughout the day, if you're one of my clients and I meet with you and you say, "Hey, I need this thing," my natural reaction is, "Sure, I'll have that to you this afternoon." And it hit me one day that many times I get back to my office or get, wherever I'm at, and I sit down and I look at it, and I'm like, oh my, I'm scheduled solid for the afternoon. I can't get that done. And it hit me. Why don't I look at my calendar before I commit to something? Because 90% of the things that were causing frustration in my life were things that I was putting in there because I didn't take the time to open my calendar and say, hey, I can get that to you on Thursday. Does that work? And since I've started that, it's made my life so much easier as well. So I can,
100%
identify with that. But
yes,
keeping us back on or back into the 5 a.m. podcast, for those that maybe haven't listened out there, how would you describe the core mission of the 5 a.m. podcast?
Yes, we are purveyors of hope. And I've always wanted to be an encourager of other people. And so when my wife and I started 5 a.m. podcast, I guess late 2018, beginning of 2019, we wanted to be a place where people could come in the sea of the interwebs, that they could be encouraged, they could find some interesting information that would help them be more productive, and that they would come away feeling hopeful and uplifted. And I was doing political things at the time, and I needed a break myself. And so I figured that, I know it says in Proverbs in the Bible, it says, he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. And I needed to be refreshed. And I thought, okay, well, then I start refreshing others. And so that's really what we wanted to do with 5ampodcast.com. Yeah.
I like that. So refreshing others to refresh yourself. I think that's a great reminder for everybody to kind of think about. So far as you've been doing the 5 a.m. podcast, I got to ask, what's your favorite moment so far?
There's there's multiple, but I would say my conversation with Jim Tracy, who's not that far away from, he lives in Idaho, and a successful businessman, loves flying the airplanes and things like that. And just a delightful fellow that I've built a relationship with. And then there was another fellow by the name of Paul Tremmel, who he beat his addictions without the typical 12-step program, and sold everything, moved down to Panama, has a sailboat. I love sailing, and has sailed and had many adventures. So there's been just some of those people that you meet that you find how they've built their lives, or they've overcome some really insurmountable odds and come out the other side as champions.
Awesome. And as you were talking, I was just thinking of another question. I guess the big thing is we said in the beginning, you have a highly successful podcast, but I want to ask you about that success. Is it really successful? By meaning, how refreshed are you today compared to before you started?
Oh, yes. If I was to use the refreshment as a metric, I would say yes, very successful, and very thankful to God, and very thankful to my wife and the other circumstances that have come into our lives that have enabled us to do this. But absolutely enjoying being refreshed and refreshing others, pouring into other people's lives. Yeah.
So I am curious, if we take that same premise, what your thoughts are, and move that to the boardroom. How does a CEO of a business start to think about how they can pour into others and refresh their teams so that they can have some? What are your thoughts?
Excellent question, because it's so important to understand the value of the people that are on your team. And I realized that there's many different leadership modalities and mindsets, but there's a verse in the Bible that was kind of drilled into me growing up on a farm. And so the Michaelized paraphrase is that a good person and a prudent person is always concerned about the condition of their flocks. Above all other things, what are the condition of my flocks? And so I always put that to my individuals who I was leading in a team or working with. And that even as a television producer, your job is kind of to make the talent look good. You never want to make them look bad or disparage them. And so with the team and being in that boardroom and understanding all those homes and families that are represented, those dreams that are around the table, I didn't even care if somebody had, they were planning on quitting in a year or two because they were going to another city and that was their goal. I was happy that they were here and that I could help them on their mission. And I knew that the right people would come in through that river of life and they would be there for that time. And I had to esteem them highly. And I had to understand that they've been brought and I've been brought to meet at this one point. So that meant that all the good and bad things I've been through, all the good and bad things that they've been through brought us to this boardroom table at that point in time. And we had the opportunity to grind off each other's rough edges and smooth some things out. So that's what I would recommend to people in the boardroom. I mean, some people might think that's not something they want to follow. I totally get it. It's how we view the people that are around us. They are assets. They are resources. But when we think of thinking back to the flocks we had at home, the better we treated our animals, the more money we made off of them in the end. I mean, none of those animals knew they were going to the slaughterhouse. We did. And we knew that if we took care of them to the best of our abilities, they were going to give us the best price. And so when we find those people that sit, and we may hate them, we may not like them, they might smell bad, they might think we smell bad. But at the end of the day, man, I want to build those people up to think that they can conquer the world. And then if they move on, they move on. That just means I get somebody else that comes in, another diamond in the rough that I can help to polish, or that will help to polish me.
Absolutely. I think your last statement, key thing that will help to polish you. Mm-hmm. I often tell leaders two things. One, I think you'll recognize this one, obviously, is I always encourage leaders to never look down on anybody and constantly look up to them. Yeah. And the second piece of it is that every person that we come in contact with, sure, maybe we can help them, but more so than anything, they can help us. We should be continuing to grow and continuing to learn as much as we can. And I often hear leaders tell somebody new coming into the organization, never quit learning, never, and when I witness that, I'll ask that leader, are you still learning? And sometimes when you run into a leader that's maybe been the CEO for 25 years, they really have to stop and think about that. And I think the key for those folks is never stop or always keep a beginner's mind, however you want to phrase that. So I want to jump back to talking about the power of routines. You've shared that you have a routine and how powerful that is for you. And as I was thinking about that a little bit more, I think for any high-performing, busy professional, they hear things like that and say, well, I can't do that. Maybe, and even the profession that probably is the least predictable would be a doctor, an ER doctor, because they may have a slow day where there's nobody in the ER, and the next day there could be car crashes, gunshot victims, who knows? Mm-hmm. So how do you balance your discipline with flexibility? And you have to have some flexibility in there, but I'm curious your take and how you would look at that.
Yes. Well, how I would look at it, two things. The first thing is, are you happy with the outcome at the end of the day? How many hits did you get and how many misses did you get? And which of those do you want to change? What does that balance look like? And then the other thing is, speaking of ER rooms, the one thing I know about is the colors for triage, and how that ER doctor is going to triage the events of the people of the day, let's say, but then also we can codify and triage the events of the day. And how critical is it that you're physically active sometime in the day? How important is it to you that you want the outcome that comes from that physical activity? And then the next would be, how important is it for you to learn something new every day? Is it a podcast or a book? And can you find the time, or how do you modify your schedule so that you can do things that will give you the outcomes that you want at the end of the day? And then ultimately the end of the week and